Hey y'all, it's your girl Lisa. Welcome back to the Live with Purpose podcast. Let me tell you something. As long as you are alive, you have purpose. Y'all, we out here. Let me tell you, I'm wrapped up in a blanket. I got on minimal makeup because I got something to say. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a little nuck if you buck in the spirit. And let me explain why. Trying to write the outline for this episode, I came up with a bunch of literally things were just getting in the way, little annoying things. Then just now I done recorded half the episode and realized my microphone wasn't on. So let me tell y'all something. This is going to be a good one. And I feel like it's going to bless you. It's going to bless me. We all finna get blessed. If one of us gets blessed, we all getting blessed. If one of us goes in, then we all go through it. If you know that lyric, we're the same. But anyways, so let's get into the episode. Life has been lifing, y'all. And something that life has taught me recently is that healing is not a linear process. And what I mean by that is it's never, okay, 1 week later from whatever happened, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And then the next week I'll still be good. It's probably going to be 1 week later, I'm good. The next week might not be so good. But the week after that, I'll be fine. The week after that, I may get triggered again. Like, I may get reminded of something again. Like, it's literally, healing is not linear, and that's okay. And I think I get frustrated that healing isn't linear because then you could kind of never predict when something rise back up again, you know, and that's a tough one to navigate. But you can't go around it. You got to go through. My mom always says that to me. You can't go around it. You got to go through. So I say all that to say, go through. You hear what I'm saying? If you going to do it, you got to do it. If we going for it, we going for it. And we fully expect to be healed, fully in Jesus' name. But we can't expect it to happen overnight. And that's not fair to us to force ourselves to get over something that happened overnight. So allow yourself time. It's okay. This is a note to self. It's okay. Take your time. Heal at your pace. Let God work on it. Open it up to God always. But heal at your pace. It's okay. Y'all. This episode already got a little deep, didn't it? So today I want to talk about, I said overnight earlier, so we're going to be talking about overnight changes. Now, when I say that, some of y'all are like, ooh, this sounds good. You know, late in the midnight hour, God going to turn it around. And he will. He definitely will. And it's going to turn around for your good. But it may not always feel good. You hear what I'm saying? And I think when we think of overnight changes, we sometimes forget that yes, it's for our good, but it may not look like what we thought it was going to look like. So I'm going to share some personal stories. We're going to talk about the Bible, all that good stuff, all in this episode. So to start on the personal story tip, I walked into work one day, fully employed, ready to do my job. Went into a meeting and came out no longer an employee of that establishment. And I said, when I woke up this morning, this isn't what I thought would happen to my day. It was very sad. It was a lot to go through. And when I tell you, I know I didn't expect it, and I don't think my company expected it either. So it was just this very weird situation of I know this is for my good. However, it don't feel good to, have to think about in X amount of weeks, I will have no income. That feels not good to feel. And also, I loved it here, and suddenly I no longer work here. This is weird. It was a lot to process. And I'm being funny right now, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? You know that meme where it's if that's a joke, I love it. If it's not, I can't wait to unpack that with you. We finna unpack it today. So you're listening to this, you're watching this, you may have a situation that is like that for you. I didn't know we was going to break up, but we started a conversation and suddenly we're broken up. I didn't know I was going to get this illness, but I went in for a routine checkup and suddenly I'm diagnosed. Whatever that looks like for you, you have one of those. It may not have happened to you just recently, but you have one of those. And I just want us to talk about walking through that with God today. And when I was have been going through, everything that I've been going through, one story that God highlighted to me in the Bible was Joseph. Now I'm finna walk through the story of Joseph because some of y'all are Bible scholars, you know it. However, I'm finna say it probably in a way that you haven't heard it before. And that's the cool thing about the Bible. You know, you can hear the same story and find something different in it. I've read the story of Joseph many times. Joseph's my guy. So when God was like, read it again, I was like, I feel like I know what happens. But he was like, no, I need you to read it while you're here in this situation so that we can relate it. And I said, you're right. So that's what I did. So one thing I want to mention before I get into the story of Joseph. When we hear about Joseph's story, if you've been to church, you know people preach about it, and they'll often say you're going to go to sleep in the prison and wake up in the palace. God's going to turn it around overnight. And he is. Again, we talked about it. He going to do that. However, what about when you go to sleep in the palace and wake up in the prison? Because that also happened to Joseph, but we don't talk about that. So that's what I want to talk about. So Joseph was his daddy's favorite son for a myriad of reasons that we know from the beginning of Genesis. His father gave him this coat, and his 11 brothers were hating. They were major haters, like big haters. Because, you know, we all dad's son, yet he get this coat. That's crazy. He wasn't the oldest. He wasn't the youngest. He was just the favorite. And so that wasn't great. They didn't love that. And then one night, Joseph has a dream that basically his brothers are going to bow down to him one day. Joseph tells his brothers, y'all finna bow down to me one day. Ain't that crazy? His brothers obviously didn't like that very much because we know how, if you have a sibling, you know sibling rivalries be real, but not just that. Full on bow down to you. You already got this coat. Bro, we ain't having it. And they couldn't kill him. You know what I'm saying? They were going to. That was their plan, was to murder him. But then they were like, you know what? Let's just make a quick dime. Let's sell him into slavery. So they sold him into slavery, took his coat, ripped it up, and took it back to their dad like, oh no, Joseph is dead. But Joseph's life obviously continues. He gets sold into slavery, and he is serving under Potiphar, which puts him in the palace serving, which is lit, like, honestly, for him, because God was with Joseph every step of his journey, meaning that everything Joseph did, it was popping. You hear what I'm saying? Like, he was that guy. And because of that, Potiphar noticed and was like, you know what? I'm going to put you in charge of everything because I can tell that when you touch something special about it. Like, God is on that. So you're going to be in charge of all the servants. He's like, I bet. So he's in there running things. He's still a slave, but he's running things. Lit. Then Potiphar's wife is like, you know, Joseph, you kind of fine. So you want to come over here and, like, you know, sleep with your girl? And he was like, no, like, you are the only thing in this kingdom that I can't mess with. Like, I have rule over everything. I ain't trying to ruin it over this. Like, this ain't worth it. And so she was like, hate that, and decided to basically frame him into trying to sleep with her. She was struggling with him, got his coat off, and he ran. And they were like, and she was like, he ran because he was trying to sleep with me. And therefore he was put in prison for trying to sleep with Potiphar's wife, even though that ain't what happened. I'm going to pause right here because I've said a lot of things. A few things I noticed about Joseph's story. One, at no point in anything that I've told you so far does he see the fullness of the dream of his brothers bowing down to him and him being, you know, lifted high up. But at every step of the way, God was with him. I forgot to mention, once he gets into prison, the prison guard is like, hey, you that guy, I like you. Here are the keys to the prison. Like, he could have escaped, but he was like, you ain't gonna do that. You a good guy. Here are the keys to the prison. Hold it down. Make sure nobody acting up. So at every step of the way, God was with Joseph. He had favor, unspeakable, unimaginable favor. And God was with him every step of the way. That literally the Bible says God was with him. So if I compare my story to Joseph's story, I can think that, yes, I was walking in a version of what I was called to, but I wasn't walking in the fullness of what I was called to. Yes, I was effective. I was doing great at what I was doing, but it still wasn't the fullness of all that God was calling me to. And I think with that happening, there was just like this thing, something had to happen. Something had to shift. What happened to me was nowhere near as scandalous what happened to Joseph. Let's be clear, huh? Like nothing crazy went down for real. However, it's just like it was time for a shift. And I believe God had to allow that shift to happen in the way that it happened for my good. And yeah, it's a little tough to process it all, but I believe I'm even growing through my processing, because I can tell you, just like Joseph felt like, just not even felt like, the Bible literally says God never left him and God was always with him. That's how I feel. Now, there are moments I'm like, if you could bring the next job sooner or this next stage sooner, that would be lit, if we're being completely transparent. Because, we worship God in spirit and in truth. Real quick pause on that. Worshiping God in spirit and in truth when you're in a season like this is so important. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the story of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. That is a musical based on Joseph's story, which I have been a part of numerous times in my youth. And in part of it, when Joseph is in prison, he starts singing this song called Close Every Door. It's very dramatic, and he's just basically sorrowful in prison. Now, in the Bible, the actual text, there's nothing about Joseph like really being sad. So, poetic license, you hear what I'm saying? And Lisa License is now saying, I'm sure there was a moment where he was like, this isn't great. This isn't the fullness of what I thought was going to happen. But God, I know you have me. Worshiping God in spirit and in truth means being honest with him. Fully being vulnerable, like, hey, yo, we out here, ain't we? I know you're still with me, but this is a tough one, huh? We in here. And that's tough. And I think we get so caught up in thinking that God can't handle our vulnerability, or we're only supposed to only be thankful we can't be honest with God. If you're not honest with God, who you finna be honest with? Like literally, who you gonna be honest with? First of all, he already knows. Second, he wants to heal it. He can't heal what we don't expose to him, what we don't surrender to him. So we finna worship God in spirit and truth over here. You hear what I'm saying? That was a bit of a detour. However, worshiping God in spirit and truth, I can say in this season, I have never felt like he left me. I felt like I don't love what's happening, but I know you're here in it with me. And I'm sure that's what Joseph felt like. Like, sir, I had this dream. I'm a slave, but I'm the best slave, so that's kind of cool. And now I'm in prison, but I'm a trusted prisoner, so I guess that's kind of cool. However, this still isn't what you promised me. So, like, what's going down for real, So for some of us, we could be similar to Joseph, and we're kind of in our prison era, if you will, where it's like, for me, it looks like job hunting, trying to stay optimistic, seeking God for what's next, just keeping on going until God reveals the next thing, whether that's through a job interview, whether that's through somebody reaching out. God, I'm open to however you want to do it, huh? I'm fully available to you. Just let me know what's next. And it reminds me of that Bible verse. It's the glory of God to conceal a thing and the honor of kings to search it out. Whew, that search be hard, don't it? And in this searching out period, there's, similar to Joseph and what I'm about to tell you, you got to keep going and you got to keep using your gifts. So we get back to Joseph's story. He's in the prison, right? And there are people who have these dreams. One's a cupbearer for Pharaoh. The other one is the baker for Pharaoh. He interprets their dreams. He uses his gifts, interprets their dreams, and ain't gonna hold you. Cupbearer's dream sounded great. He said to the cupbearer, hey, just like, when you get back to Pharaoh, because you finna go back. When you get back to Pharaoh, just, don't forget about your boy. I'm out here in the prison. You know where to find me. You don't gotta look that far. And the baker does not have a similar fate. Unfortunately, he will be deceased. So that's not great. But Joseph interprets the dreams, and great, everything's good. And I think something about that part of the story that stuck out to me, And I'm not really sure how to interpret it and apply it directly to what I'm currently going through. Maybe that'll be revealed later when an opportunity presents itself. However, when Joseph was in the prison, he made it clear, no, this is what I want next. Like, this is what I'm believing for next. Hey, cupbearer, when you see Pharaoh, remember your boy. I'm expecting you to mention me to Pharaoh. I'm not even sure if he knew for what, but he knew, Pharaoh needs to know who I am, and Pharaoh needs to know that I can help. I don't know help with what, but he knew that his name needed to be brought up to Pharaoh. So sometimes you got to speak up, huh? You got to let it be known what you want. And even in real time, as I'm processing it, after we go through these like quick changes of overnight what's next, it's like, okay, as you're thinking about what's next and we're worshiping God in spirit and in truth, let's pray about it. Let's be like, God, this is the things I want. Is that going to, like, are we into that? Am I making that up? Like, present it all to him. What do you want? What do you want next? Because he's going to determine what happens next. So we might as well all be on the same page. God, XYZ sounds cool. What do you think about that? That's a no. Okay. That's a, we're going to believe for that. Okay, cool. Like, literally surrendering it to him. Because if you don't start getting a vision for what's next, you're going to become hopeless. Like, I hate to say it so bluntly, but if you don't have a vision for what's next, if you're not believing for something, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough and not cute and not fun. Like, it's hard to stay optimistic when you don't have a vision. So we got to get a vision and believe for something. Believe for what's next and what God could be doing. So another thing that stuck out to me, even as he was letting it be known what he wanted next, he was still using his gifts to show, hey, this is what I want next, but let me show you that, like, I'm using my gifts and my gifts can be useful. For me, when I'm doing this whole job search thing, I'd have made a whole website with a portfolio of my work. I done, started posting on social media more because I just enjoy that. And it's just another way to keep myself occupied and focused on something. Like, I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing ministry still in a way. Like, it's just, what else can you be doing in this time to just continue to use your gifts? Because also, don't nobody want their gifts going to waste. Like, what I'm gonna have a gift for if it's not gonna be used? Like, if I'm not gonna feel like I'm moving towards something. Even use your gifts to heal, huh? If you're like an artist, paint something that helps you heal. If you're a writer, I like journaling, I like talking, I like, you know what I mean? This is also giving me a chance to get closer to my family. Like, whatever that looks like for you, like, engage in something. Keep yourself engaged in something in this prison era season, whatever you feel like you want to call it. But, like, when you're in the middle of it and the thick of it and the next thing hasn't come yet, you got to keep yourself hopeful and you got to keep yourself occupied and worshiping God in spirit and in truth. You hear what I'm saying? So I'm not going to hold y'all. For about a week, this is all I had. And I said, God, this doesn't feel like there's more to this, I feel like. And so I go to church on Sunday, and lo and behold, our pastor is preaching about Joseph. And I've been studying Joseph all week. I said, God, look at you looking out, completing the circle, completing the study. So I'm locked in. I'm like, what he going to say that's going to add to the study I've been doing? So we fast forward to not the end of Joseph's story, but towards the end. And Joseph gets elevated because Pharaoh mind you, it's 2 years later that the cupbearer remembers him. We won't talk about that. And I'm not believing whatever you're going through is going to take you 2 years. I'm believing, again, as quickly as it happens, it's going to turn around. I'm believing that for both of us. You hear what I'm saying if you're listening. Praying the 2 years is a metaphor because I'm not trying to be unemployed for 2 years. Anyways, that just got real, didn't it? We got transparent. Back to the story. We go from Joseph in the prison, and then the cupbearer gets out, and 2 years later, the cupbearer remembers Joseph, and it's like, oh, yeah, because Pharaoh has a dream that no one can interpret, and cupbearer's like, I know a guy who could help you. His name Joseph, he in prison still, I believe, because I didn't remember to say anything, so I'm sure he's still there. So they go get Joseph out of prison, they clean him up, and he interprets Pharaoh's dream. Lit. And he says, listen, they finna be a famine. 7 years of feast, 7 years of famine. And you're going to need somebody who's wise to help you get through this. Now, when he's interpreting the dream, he doesn't say, I interpret dreams. He said, well, God's going to give me the ability to interpret this dream. And God's going to interpret the dream. I'm just going to say it. And that's what he says about the dream. And this is a bit of a flex moment, in my opinion, because this is the point where Joseph is no longer asking to be elevated, but he's just acting, if that makes sense. So he's like, hey, this is your dream. You need somebody to be in charge of it. He done interpreted Pharaoh's dream. What a flex, because literally no one else could. No magicians, no whatever. They couldn't do it. But, Joseph walks in there with the power of God, and interprets it. And it's just like, you need somebody. He didn't offer himself up. He let Pharaoh think it was his idea, but really it was God's plan the whole time. You hear what I'm saying? This gets me excited because I know whatever the solution to my thing is, my God, it's not going to be, I can maybe mention it, but the person, whoever is going to be the next one to put me wherever, is going to be the one to be like, you know what? My idea is, I'm sure it was your idea. It was God's idea. There's this Bible verse that goes, it is as easy for God to direct the heart of the king as it is for him to direct a stream. So, to the effect of, the heart of the king is in God's hand. So people be thinking of stuff and like, oh, you'd be perfect for this. I would. And my father, who had me the whole time, put me on your mind. And look at that. We love that. It just gets me excited about the future, y'all. But anyways, so back to my story. I go back to my personal story. I'm at church. We're talking about this. And my pastor's last point was something that was similar to something that God had said to me, but I really couldn't interpret. So God said to me, it's time to go back. So I'm thinking I need to move back to this. I need to move back to that. I need to go back to this. But really, through the point that my pastor made and me praying and seeking God and all that stuff, I really came to, it's time to go back to the original vision that God gave me. So for you, if let's say your health has been threatened, what is your original vision of health? And if you haven't gotten one, we finna pray about that and get one. Because for me, I have a vision for what my life is like that God gave me at the beginning of this year. For what my life should, look like, what I'm believing for, all that stuff. I can tell you that while in the midst of life, I lost sight of it. And so when it came time to like this shift to happen and all this stuff to go down, like I had no vision for what was next because I had lost the long-term vision that God had given me, if that makes sense. So when I was told, go back, it's time to go back, I was like, all right. I'm going back to the original vision he gave me. I wrote it down. I highly recommend writing it down or making a vision board, whatever that looks like for you. But I wrote mine down. And to remind myself to stay positive and keep seeking daily, I try to read it daily. Because if I don't, she finna get sad. She finna get a little panicky. You hear what I'm saying? And we can't have that. We're believing. We're having faith. We're not going to let ourselves fall into a depression. We're not going to let ourselves be helpless. Like, we're not doing that. Or hopeless. We're not doing that. Because that's literally not of God. That's not what God has for us. God did not put you in the situation you're in for you to be depressed, for you to be lonely, or for you to feel like he doesn't have your back. That's not why you're where you are. And it's a lie from the enemy that any of that is true. And we reject lies around here, and we take on God's truth, which is the joy of the Lord is your strength, which is you're not alone because you have God, and he's placed people around you who can help you through what you're going through, and is that God has the final say. And the biggest thing is that God is working everything out for your good. Not for your good just like last season. For your good right now. For your good in your next, for your good eternally. He don't play about you. He don't play about his kids. You hear what I'm saying? And we walk around acting like he's playing games. He's not. He's not. So it may look crazy right now. And again, this is as much for you as it is for me. It may look crazy right now, and it may not all add up, but you gotta find the joy in it, and you gotta find the victories in it. In these past 3 weeks, I've spent so much time with my family that I didn't get to spend before because I was so busy with work. I've gotten to relax. I've gotten to explore new hobbies. You see this hair? I did this hair myself. There's opportunities for growth, so don't come for me if you see it. But, I did my hair myself. I never thought I could do that. I didn't have time to do that. I brought my guitar home from my parents' house. Might play a little tune. Like, there's all kinds of things that I'm discovering about myself that I just didn't have time for before. And whatever this next job looks like, I'm praying for some specific stuff. And when it all comes through, I'll talk about it then, because here we are talking about it now. But I just am so excited for what's next because I know it's working for my good. I can't tell you the specifics of what it is because I'm not even sure I fully know, because I know whatever I'm expecting, God is just going to blow my mind and do exceedingly and abundantly, and I'm believing for that. But I will no longer, here we go. So to be completely transparent, this is not my first time in a situation like this. A little over a year ago, before I got this job, I was unemployed for 6 months. It was terrible. 0 stars. And I remember being hopeless. I remember being like, God has nothing for me. He's forgotten about me. And it's like there was a hint of that existed, but there was still this like hope that was so small. Faith the size of a mustard seed got me through it, really pushed me to my next thing, made me believe for more, all that good stuff. But I am so determined that hopelessness won't even have a place in me. And I believe that for you too. Hopelessness can't live here. Eviction notice. Thank you, next. Goodbye. We're not interested. We don't want your Girl Scout cookies. We don't want any of it. Whatever that is for you, hopelessness, fear, depression, it has no place in you. And I rebuke it right now in the name of Jesus. And I told y'all at the beginning of this episode, feeling real nuck if you buck. So we serve a notice right now, an eviction notice to everything that is not of God, that's living rent-free in our mind and in our hearts, and we're moving forward, period. So I love you guys, and I'm thankful for you listening. I'm going to be honest, y'all. Throughout this episode, there was a lot of pausing. There was a lot of, should I have said that? Should I do this? Whatever that looks like. So I'm not sure what y'all are hearing. I'll be honest. Because as I sit here right now, this edit is going to be interesting. But I know that I believe that God has something for you in this episode. And in your next season, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. So I love you. I'm thankful for you. I'm believing with you. I'm believing for you. If you want to follow me on Instagram and all them, it's at Lisa K. Satchel. You can follow the podcast at Live with Purpose Pod. And yeah, we finna keep going. We finna keep shining. We finna keep grinding. And God is good. He always has been. He always will be. He hasn't left you. He hasn't forsaken you. I just want to keep prophesying over you and thinking and speaking life over you, because it's not over. That song, it's not over until God says it's over. When it's over, he just starts a new thing. You're never not standing in his promise. You're never not standing in the fullness of his love. So he loves you. He has something special for you. Keep believing, keep fighting, keep praying, all that good stuff. Love you.